Hey everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be my Game Week 1, or Game Week 2 rather, transfer plans. We're looking at a very rough Game Week 1. Game Week 1 is not yet over. We have Pedro Porro who can maybe save the day, probably not if we're being honest, given how things have gone. Captaincy definitely hasn't gone well. I'm at 4.9 million in the world, so probably the worst start I've ever had, but that's fine. We had a really bad start last season as well. I remember it quite fondly, and things can change so quickly at the start of the season. All it takes is a few captaincy swings and for a couple picks to actually do well that go your way. And I think it's very possible still for that to happen. Obviously, a couple issues have already cropped up within the team. I think people can identify Kwanzaa as being one and Kunku as well, the two one pointers. Other than that, I think I'm very happy with my team as it stands. Clearly, the Salah only type of draft has absolutely obliterated me so far. Probably less so compared to, let's say, Salah plus Holland, because I imagine those types of drafts don't have Saka. But that's life, right? You got to move on. And I'm still happy with a lot of the picks. Things didn't go well in terms of the Kwanzaa substitution. As I said, we'll discuss that in transfer plans. But just quickly recapping my team as things go. João Pedro played a lot of minutes, and this was actually coming off of what I expected to be just a 65-minute cameo for João Pedro. So the fact that he got really good minutes in game week 1, even though they actually have two players to come into the squad, for me is very positive, and I'm very happy about the João Pedro minutes so far. We're looking at a home fixture next and one versus United. Even though United kept a clean sheet, I'm still very confident that João Pedro can hopefully do something in that game. That would be the prime game before game week 4. As far as the rest of the team, Eze played really good minutes once again. So did Isak. No questions there for both players. Still looked very involved. Let's be honest, things didn't go our way. Isak captaincy in regards to the Shah red card. Eze captaincy in terms of that disallowed goal. I probably won't complain too much about it. This happens very often. We do play a game where we're trying to predict things in the future. We're trying to pick players who, on paper, are going to deliver for us. And Eze was sort of stopped from doing so. As far as Bruno, had plenty of chances, didn't really capitalize on them. Haaland looked good as usual. This was going to be the tough game. I didn't really see him as a captaincy pick, but he still did well and did better than Isak, probably due to the 10 versus 11 aspect of that Newcastle game. And Kunku is probably a big question mark. But I think one thing that remains to be said is that yes, it seemed a little bit tactical, but not in the same sense that it was sort of like the Kwanzaa substitution. You have to say that a lot of teams do set up differently from Man City, and I think moving forward, my only hope for Nkunku is that he will actually play more minutes in some of the easier fixtures where they hopefully won't field three midfielders, where you see Enzo playing effectively in the 10, and then you have Lavia and Caicedo in the team as well. I'm unsure if that really is Enzo Maresca's plan. I really hope it isn't, but I think that we'll have opportunities for Nkunku to play more minutes in the games to come. As far as the defense, though, Trent looking great as usual. Pedro Porro yet to play. Henderson had a bit of a tough game. No complaints there. The reality is it was an away fixture, and this was the game where I was expecting Henderson to do poorly. So the fact that he hasn't really changed my mind on him. I'm still happy about him being my goalkeeper for the first 6 games. Yes, of course, people on a Salah only draft might have a better goalkeeper, and that's fine. We saw all the big teams get clean sheets effectively this weekend, but that's what we expected from game week 1, right? We knew that was a good Arsenal game. We knew that was a good Liverpool game. Some of their bad games are still to come, more so in terms of Arsenal and Man City. As far as Kwanzaa, he's clearly the major issue within the team overall, where I think a lot of people are considering transfers. I'll talk about my plans to sort of work around them, but that's sort of my thoughts right now. I'll also quickly touch on my bench, right? I think the fact that I actually ended up on the variation of team that actually had Dunk and Konsa actually made me really happy because we saw Barco get subbed, or rather not even start the game. We also saw the same fate for Johnson from Ipswich. And so I kind of like the idea that I've gone for two 4.5s in place of the Barco plus Rogers variation. Now, Rogers played a lot of minutes, and I think that makes Rogers an extremely appetizing pick. But we already knew he was going to be a great pick. And another thing we have to mention is Watkins was subbed off early. So that has an impact in terms of everyone else's minutes were on paper a little bit better than usual. Going back to the point, though, I do like the fact that I've not gone with Barco because it means that I can simply have Duncan Konsa for the next few game weeks without having to 100% feel the need to pull out a Kwanzaa transfer. The one situation that might make me actually use the Kwanzaa transfer is the reality about transfer value. And Kwanzaa seems like he's pretty close to getting a price drop, so we'll have to manage that in the time to come. I'm currently looking at the Fantasy Football Hub interface right now, so you can have a look at in the link in bio as well. the interface here where I'm actually going to show you guys what my plans are for the weeks to come. So I'm on the page right now here. We're looking at basically my transfer plans that I've really set up for myself. And this is what happens if I plan to roll effectively. So starting from game week 2 here, we basically have my team. What I have planned right now is it looks like Quans is going to play, but in reality, I'm just going to bench him for Dunk, right? The whole point of having Dunk is that at least here in game week 2, I have a home fixture. So I'm quite happy to have Dunk. And the rest of the team can stay as it is. Yes, of course, Nkunku played reduced minutes, but am I immediately going to transfer him out of my team? I don't think so. I'm going to let him see out at least the next two fixtures, which are quite good for Chelsea. And then you can see game week 4, it starts to get a little bit worse in terms of the expected points projections. I'm totally fine with that. In this case here, of course, I'm just going to simply go with Dunk replacing Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa falls into the bench. But as I said, a lot of managers will probably in a situation where they maybe have someone like Barco. And if you have someone like Barco, I think you have two options really to think about right now, which I definitely think are going to be Robinson from Fulham, who actually has an amazing game week 2 fixture, or you have the option of going equally, I suppose, as terrestrialistic, equally as volatile as Kwanzaa in going for Rico Lewis for Man City. You've got an Ipswich at home fixture next. You'd hope that Rico Lewis can see out 60 minutes. I wouldn't say Pep is very prone to having 45-minute substitutions, although we did see Foden come in at 45 minutes. Those are my thoughts right now. But it still makes more sense for me to go to Dunk. I think that at least with having two free transfers for game week 3, I'll have more powerful moves to make. And maybe that actually means just strengthening the defenders as opposed to just going for another 4.5 option. I think I can definitely wait and see and move into another player from Kwanzaa that I might actually prefer than, let's say, any of the other picks that I can simply go for one free transfer. And that's sort of my situation because I feel like I'm already stacked on defense. Yes, I'm missing out on a Robinson game, but I'm okay with that for the time being. And João Pedro has a great game. So when you actually look at the team setting it up now, I've got Haaland as the captain, Eze as the vice captaincy. I think that's very, very clear for game week 2. If we quickly move on to game week 3 and what that kind of looks like, the team is actually still quite well rounded, I would say. So in this situation, I don't really want to be playing Dunk. So Dunk actually falls into the bench. I play Konsa instead. And so in this situation, I've got Newcastle away for Porro. It's not the greatest of fixtures. We're expecting Porro to probably lose his clean sheet, but it's still a good opportunity probably to attack. And then I've got Konsa. I just simply can't play Dunk because he has an Arsenal fixture. And Kwanzaa will probably find out a little bit more about maybe Konate's performance. Maybe there's a bit of a yo-yo in terms of their minutes, but I still don't think it's worth the risk to play Kwanzaa necessarily up until I feel really comfortable doing so. As far as the midfield, nothing really changes. It's another Holland captaincy week in Game Week 3. I can definitely consider going for Bukayo Saka, though, because if I think his minutes are actually very good and up to scratch, because it seems like we're still seeing some earlier substitutions for him, I think Saka is definitely an extremely viable captaincy option. Then, not just reacting to this game week, I think the reality is Holland, I hope, will smash Game Week 2, or my team is going to be in a bit of trouble. But those are the options right now, and I'd be comfortable vice captaining Saka in this fixture here. So definitely an option to go for vice captaining Saka. I'd still be very happy with going for Trent all of these games, which is why we started with him in the first place. And then in game week 4, I think that there's an opportunity definitely to actually consider maybe going for a little bit of a two free transfer play. So when you look at my team here, I think what's weak about it, I suppose, is that it still doesn't have Salah, right? We've seen Salah, he already looks great. That's not unexpected. The reality is we said Haaland only draws and Salah only draws are very interesting. But this is the first week where I think I can maybe consider dropping someone like Isak potentially and then going for someone like Salah. However, that means that I'll be dropping Saka, and I don't really like that in game week 4 because I still think that Tottenham's definitely a good fixture for Bukayo here. So it's not exactly a fixture or a two free transfer opportunity that I really want to do. What I have planned for the meantime actually is on game week 5, although I am expecting that I'm not going to make any free transfers for Kwanzaa, although I've already mentioned the two options that are Robinson and even, let's say, someone like Rico Lewis. If you're someone who really wants to get invested into that Ipswich fixture, maybe you actually have as much depth as I have in defense. So you don't really mind having to, let's say, have that Rico Lewis position be ruined in a few weeks' time to come. So in game week 5, I think my general plan right now is to actually go for two free transfers here, where I probably actually move out of Holland into someone like Watkins. Because if I go into someone like Watkins, yes, I'm losing a little bit of expected points in between moving from Holland to Watkins. But what I do gain is definitely the opportunity to move into someone like Salah. So just by doing those two moves, I quite like being able to move out of both the players who are actually involved within the game here for Arsenal versus Man City. We're expecting that probably to be a low scoring affair. We've seen that fixture twice last season. The reality is these are the two best defenses and, of course, the two best offenses in the league. But you'd have to imagine that it's going to be a little bit of a stalemate once again. And I think this is a good opportunity to go for Salah here. Also, because I really want to captain Salah here. So if I captain Salah here, and I also plan to, let's say, maybe vice captain someone like Eze here, who just has an amazing fixture once again. It's United at home. Crystal Palace had a pretty good run at United last season too. So I quite like using my first two free transfers of the season in game week 5, and that's the general plan that I have. Of course, when you actually look at this general plan, I think it's actually very strong. But then the manager or the regular question that a manager would probably raise is, why not just use the free transfer to avoid the price drop for quants? And I think that's totally justifiable as a question to ask. So I'm definitely considering that Quansa transfer. I think what I'll do is probably once again follow the Fantasy Football Hub sort of price predictor in the meantime. So if we actually look at the toolbox, what's nice is actually I can just see the price changes with the toolbox. And as it stands, of course, if I type, let's say, the name of Kwanzaa, it seems like he's still 24% as of this time to, let's say, drop in price. So it doesn't actually seem like he's going to drop in price that quickly. Maybe it's because the average FPL manager hasn't made that move yet to Robinson, or maybe they already own Robinson. That's very possible too. Another problem, as I said, is I think not many managers actually have the need to use a transfer now. And it looks a lot more powerful to at least save up two free transfers. Because what's quite curious about the landscape, if I go back to just my team in general, is that ultimately we have a lot of players who are still very, very interesting. Like, let's say, Mbumo, who looks like an even better option if Tony, for example, is no longer going to be playing for Brentford for the time being. He's going to be a penalty taker. So there's going to be a lot of movement in the midfield position that I can imagine that only doesn't just relate to players like Salah and even Watkins, for example. But going back to the point, given that Kwanzaa isn't really predicted to actually get a price fall, I am planning to roll for the time being. If he really does drop to 4.4, I probably will actually let that happen unless I'm absolutely sure for whatever reason, come close to the deadline, that I know that Rico Lewis is going to start another game of football. And I really want to buy into that game week 2 fixture here. In the meantime, I'm quite happy with just keeping Kwanzaa in the back of my bench. As I said, I plan to play Dunk in the meantime. Let me know what your plans are for Game Weeks 2. Are you planning to actually move out of Kwanzaa? Are you planning to move out of players like Nkunku? Are you excited about players like Mbumo as well? Because I think one of the big things to mention is that, yeah, there is going to be a lot of movement in these territories. We've also seen 45 minutes from Foden, so he immediately becomes an interesting transfer option there too. But now that we've just seen Saka play, he looked brilliant. Same with Salah. I can imagine a lot of FPL managers don't really want to have a move on these players. But if you started with someone like Son, and let's say he blanks versus Leicester, it's very possible that those sorts of managers will be moving to someone like Foden just to capitalize on such a good fixture. I do think that this season, given that we have a lot of players in these elite positions that are all capable of these double digit hauls, as we've seen so far, the reality is you probably still want to be moving around a lot of those major pieces as opposed to spending your free transfers on some of the cheaper price picks because they're going to be a little bit more volatile in the sense that people are going to be moving in and out of Kwanzaa, in and out of 4.5 picks. I can see a lot of transfers from Mazraoui already. But the key point is that what is the ceiling that you're sort of dealing with here? What are the swings that you're dealing with there? I do think, generally speaking, when you look at the expected points gulf between some of the elite players, when they have really good fixtures and one player has a mediocre one, you'll see a bigger expected point swing, which means that making transfers around those players will get you more value overall within your team. So that's sort of my thoughts right now. When I actually ran the suggested transfers tool on Fantasy Football Hub, it actually also recommended the roll, which makes sense. But as I said, it's still worth to sort of plan loosely into the distance to sort of think about what you want to do for your team. My plans right now are to do what I want to do with Game Week 5. Let me know what your thoughts are in terms of my transfer plans. Hope you guys have a wonderful time this game week. If you guys are having a hard time with dealing with your rank, all I have to say is that I'm literally ranked 4.9 million right now. I am totally fine with that, right? We got 37 game weeks for this season to correct itself. for our moves or our planned moves to hopefully turn into fruition. And that's it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We've heard that time and time again. And as I always say, let's just practice some patience. So take care, you guys. I'll probably be back from vacation very, very soon. Hope to see you guys with the green screen very, very shortly. And take care.